Okay, we're at the bottom of 12b, second last line, last word of the third line from the bottom. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So we said before that if the fall Kufas Tishrei, the fall season begins too late, that's in the by the lunar calendar, so then we do a leap year. Now, how late does it have to be to establish a leap year? Amar Yehuda says, "En mi'avrin tashana elim kein haisa tekufa chasera rubo shel chodesh." If the summer would otherwise take up more than a half of the month of Tishrei. In other words, if the fall was it the equinox or the solstice? I always get them mixed up. The fall equinox would fall in the second half of Tishrei, then we would make the previous Adar, we would make a leap year, so that then it would be the month of Elul that the fall, the latter half of the month of Elul, that the fall season would begin. What do we mean by most of the month? Shisha Sayam, 16 days, right? Because the month is
Tishrei,
29
the
and a half
month of
days.
Tishrei would fall.
Sorry?
It would be the problem would be Tishrei would fall into
Yeah, so
Tishrei.
if you make a leap year, then that delays the start of Tishrei by a month. So instead of falling after the 16th of Tishrei, the fall would begin after the 16th of Elul. Right? Did I get that right?
No, I think they're referring that someone would go into Tishrei because we're going to be talking about, right, Sukkot. Isn't that what in the Chag? That would be the problem.
Right. So if the fall wouldn't begin until late in Tishrei, right? I mean, or you could say the summer would end late in Tishrei. That's not good.
Right.
So we add an extra month in the previous Adar that pushes that changes the calendar so that instead of Tishrei, it'll now be Elul when the summer ends and fall begins. Right? We add an extra month before that so that Tishrei doesn't start till a month later.
Right.
Yeah. What do I mean by the most of the month? Shisha Sayom, 16 days, Rabbi Yehuda. A month is 29 and a half days, call it 30. And half of it is the second half begins on the 16th day. Rabbi Yossi Omer Echad v'Yesrim Yom. Now, most of the month means 2/3 of the month, and we're talking about the 21st day. If that's when the fall equinox falls after the 21st day, that's when you step in and make the extra month. Both of them have the same source. Chag Hasif Tkufas Hashana. The Chag Hasif, Sukkot, the festival of gathering in, of harvesting. No, not harvesting, gathering in. Tkufas Hashana, the season of the year. Meaning that it's Sukkot that determine which season Sukkot is in, that determines whether you play with the calendar. One holds that the whole of Sukkot has to be in the new tkufa, in the new season, right? Now the whole holiday can't here mean the whole holiday of Sukkot. That starts on the 15th, right? But you can't gather things in on the 15th, right? So the gathering part of the Chag HaAsif begins on the 16th of Tishrei. Umar Savar Miktas Chag Beinam B'Tkufa Chadasha. No, the fact that it says Chag Hasif Tkufas Hashanah indicates not that the whole of the gathering part of the holiday has to be in the new season, just any part of it. So in other words, even the last day of Sukkot, if that is in the winter or in the fall season, that's okay. But if it's later than that, if none of the fall season if none of Sukkot is in the fall season, that's when you make a leap year. Micah saw, right? What's the so what do they mean by like when the season begins? Ika Savare Yom Tekufa Gomer. If they're talking about the day of the equinox, if that is the concluding day of the previous season, the last day of summer, B'lav Hachinami, then even without Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi, if the equinox was on the 16th or the 21st, depending according to which, Lolaman Diamar Kule Chagika, Lolaman Diamar Mixes Chagika. Like then if you're saying that the 16th day of Sukkot, of Tishrei, i.e. the first day of Chol Hamoed Sukkot, is the last day of the equinox, is the last day, is the equinox day, and it's the last day of the previous season, then that day is not in the fall, it's still in the summer, so it doesn't help you. Ela Kosover Yom Tkufa Maschil must be that they hold that the day of the equinox is the beginning of the new season, and that's why they say if the beginning of the new season is, um, past the first day of Sukkot or past the last day of Sukkot, then that's when you do a leap year. Makes face. They ask a question. Yom Tkufa Gomer. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says the equinox day is the end of the summer, end of the previous season. Rabbi Yossi Omer Yom Tkufa Maschil. Rabbi Yossi says it's the beginning of the new season. But we just try to demonstrate that everybody holds, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi hold that it's the last day of the that it's the first day of the new season. V'yod Tanya, and also we have a brisa. We don't do a leap year unless the summer wouldn't be completed before the passing of the first of the most of the month, the greater part of the month. So Kama Ruba Chodesh, what does it mean the greater part of the month? Shisha Asar Yom, 16 days. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shtei Yados B'Chodesh. Rabbi Yehuda says 2/3 of the way in, so 20 days. Kama Shtei Yados B'Chodesh Chaf Yom, 2/3 is 20 days. 2/3 of 30 is 20 days. Rabbi Yossi Omer Mechashim. Rabbi Yossi says it depends. You have to figure it out. Shisha Asar Lifnei HaPasach Ma'abrin. If the um, if the winter, if in Nisan the winter would go 16 days into Nisan, then we do a leap year. But if the summer would go into Sukkot 16 days, then you don't. It has to be more than 16 days. You have to. Then we don't do. So this is completely different than what we saw of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. Another opinion. Even if the summer would go 16 days into Tishrei, we still do a leap year. And some say even if a minority of the month of the summer would go into the even if the summer would go into a minority of the month of Tishrei, what do I mean by minority? Abrasiyam, 14 days. So
Isn't
we
there a
had here
question of Rabbi
four.
Yossi? I'm Rabbi Yossi.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah. So
it?
Rabbi Yehuda has, in this brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says that the summer has to go 20 days into Tishrei, but in our brisa, or in Shmuel's version, Rabbi Yossi said 16, Rabbi Yehuda said 16 days. Kasha. Okay,
It's
this is true.
Rabbi Yossi. It's Rabbi
And
Yossi.
Rabbi Yossi is also, Rabbi Yossi here in this brisa says, um,
Pesach.
yeah,
He's
it
talking about
depends.
Pesach.
Right, he's like 16. Yeah, that doesn't fit with Rabbi Yossi either. I don't know why the Gemara doesn't ask that as well, but in any case, kasha. Like we can't. The Gemara doesn't have an answer even for Rabbi Yehuda. So in other words, Shmuel version does not accord with this brisa, and it is indeed contradictory.
Where's the Kasha and Rabbi Yehuda?
Because in this brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says 20 days, and in our brisa, he said, in Shmuel's view, he said what?
Well, uh, he says 20 days here, 2/3.
Yeah, and he says 16 days in Shmuel's version. Correct. Rabbi Yehuda said that. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda said 16 days, and here he's saying 20 days. Okay, Amar, we said before. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shtei Yos B'Chodesh Shachrim Yom. So this brisa said 2/3 of a month or 20 days. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Mechashrin, it depends. Shisha Yom Lifnei Pesach Ma'abrin. Like 16 days into Nisan, then that's no good. Then we would do an Ibur, we would make a leap year, but Sukkos, we would not. Hainu Rabbi Yehuda. Wait, so Rabbi Yossi is the same as Rabbi Yehuda, right? Both of them say only some of Chol Hamoed has to fall in the new season, right? So why 20 days versus 21 days? So Gemara says Yom Tkufa Gomer, Yom Tkufa Maslik. What they're arguing about is the view of this brisa, what they're arguing about is how do you count the day of the equinox? End of summer or beginning of fall? Um, Rabbi Yehuda says it's the end of summer. So if the summer goes 20 days into Tishrei and the equinox is on the 21st, then that's still summer and you have to add a month. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, that's the 21st day is fall and you don't have to add a month. Amar Mar, we said before about Rabbi Yossi, Shisha Lifnei Chag and Miyabrin. If the summer goes up to 16 days into Tishrei, but not more, then we don't do a leap year. El Rabbi Yossi, but according to Rabbi Yossi, this is what we were asking, what we noticed before. Shishas Yosei Chag Hudulo, Hashiv Sar V'Sam Neisar Me'abrin. So he's saying 16 days, it's okay, you don't do a leap year. That implies that that's the limit. And that if the summer went to the 17th days, we would make a leap year, right? V'amar Shishas Yosei Pesach Ein, Batzir Lo, but why is it different than Pesach, right? For Pesach, he said 16 days, we would if the winter goes 16 days into Pesach, we would do a um, a leap year, but less than 60 days, we would not, right? So if winter goes 15 days into Nisan, then summer, there's no opportunity to do any more leap years between Nisan and Tishrei. So if winter goes 15 days into Nisan, then when would summer start? 20 days into Tishrei, just by counting the days of the month in between.
Well, you wouldn't add two leap years. Once you've already added the leap year, you're done, right?
No, I understand, but what we're saying is, Rabbi Yossi says if winter goes 16 days into Tishrei, make a leap year, right? But what about 15 days? Then you wouldn't, right? No
Yeah.
leap year. But if winter goes 15 days into Nisan, if you follow the calendar to Tishrei, it turns out that Tishrei, that summer goes 20 days into Tishrei, right? But Rabbi Yossi says no. Rabbi Yossi says in Tishrei, it's only 16 days. That after 16 days, you would make a leap year, right? Remember that the opportunity to make the leap year is before Pesach in
Right.
Adar, right?
Right.
So what you're doing affects both Pesach and Sukkot, both Nisan and Tishrei, right? So if you don't make, under this circumstance, if you don't make a leap year because it's Nisan is okay, you could have Tishrei be not okay, right? But Rabbi Yossi said that you do have to. Sorry, not I shouldn't say not okay. I should say that Tishrei would be summer would extend 20 days into Tishrei, but Rabbi Yossi also says that if summer extends 16 days into Tishrei, you already make a leap year the previous Adar. So how do you reconcile these two rules?
Is that a given? That if
Yeah, if
Pesach,
you count the days.
Nisan is 15, then Tishrei would be more than 16?
Yeah, because if you count up the number of days um, between Rosh Chodesh Nisan and Sukkot, that's how it will turn out, right? Like the number of days of the season is fixed. It's a quarter of the solar year, right?
That's right.
So that's however many days that is, whatever, 90 something days or
Yeah,
120 something days.
it's about 90 and a quarter,
Yeah,
maybe.
something like that. And you have two seasons, spring and summer, so that's 180 something days, right? So, and then look at the number of days in the months of Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, etc. Then you'll end up with the the fall equinox being on the 20th day of Tishrei. But Rabbi Yossi says you already should be making a leap year if it's the 16th day of Tishrei. So like sure, Pesach is coming out okay, but Sukkot is not coming out okay according to Rabbi Yossi. So Gemara says, look, no,
But that would
there's no
always be the
contradiction.
case, right? I
What?
mean, not always, but I mean, if that could, I mean, potentially that could always be the case. So that these
Yeah,
seasons,
but if you're Rabbi Yossi and you're making the rules, then don't make a rule that says, oh, 16 days into Nisan is okay, right? Because it's not okay because when you get to Tishrei, it won't be okay
right?
according to
Exactly.
Rabbi Yossi.
Right.
Okay, so Gemara says, no, it's not a problem. Both cases, whether it's summer going 16 days into Tishrei or 20 days into Tishrei, there would be no leap year. So when he's saying 16 days in Tishrei, he's not being specific. He actually thinks 21 days in Tishrei is the cutoff, but he wasn't being specific because he's kind of making a parallel statement about Pesach and Sukkot. So he's not being specific about Sukkot. It's 16 days up to 20 days. So not a great answer, but that's the only way to resolve the Gemara can resolve these statements.
So what he's hedging his bets. He's saying, "Well, it could be 16, it could be 20, but really, I mean 21. I mean 20."
Something like that. Yeah, like I say, it doesn't really, it's not very convincing, shall we say. Um, Okay, but the next thing in that second brisa is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Omer, "Avshi shasar lefnei Chag Ma'abrin." Even if it's just 16 days, if summer goes just 16 days into Tishrei, that's a trigger already to make a leap year. And Tanakama, that's the same as the Tanakama. They both say 16 days. What's his new? How is he different? More answers. It be now Yom Tkufa Masl Yom Tkufa Gomer. They're arguing about is the equinox day is at the end of the previous season or the beginning of the new season. So if it's the beginning, if it's the beginning of the new season, so if the summer goes 16 days into Tishrei, so the new season is the first day of Chol Hamoed on the 16th, then all of Chol Hamoed falls in to the fall, which is what we want. And the other one says no, the last day, the equinox day, the 16th, is the last day of the summer. And so um, and you don't and you would need to do a leap year. V'lo Masaime, but the Brisa don't tell you which is which. Um, so again, very unclear how you resolve, like how you work that into the language of the Brisa. Um, like they both say 16, but does it mean um, start if the new season were to start on the 16th or the 17th? It's unclear what they mean by the 16th. Is that the day that they see the end of the summer, and you do need to um um and you don't need to do a leap year, or is it the first day of winter and you do need to do a leap year? So in other words, the price is not clear. Remember the last view in the price,
So
huh?
what if it's the beginning of the first day of the fall, or the
If it,
16th is the first day of the fall? Then they would do a leap year. That's the implication here.
the implication is no, if it's the first day of the fall, that's good. Then all of the Chol Moed Sukkos fall is in the fall, which is okay. If it's the end of the summer, then the first day of Chol Moed Sukkos is in the summer, and that's no good. And you would have to do a leap year. And the last,
So anything beyond that,
oh
there's
yeah, beyond that for sure. Like beyond that, they would both agree. Both the Tanakhama and Rabbi Shimon would agree that you do need a leap year because for sure, for sure, the earlier days of Chol Hamoed were still in the summer, and that's no good.
So this is the idea of the 16th day. We just don't know on which side of the fence it falls then.
Right, that would be the difference between these two Tanaim. Yeah. And
Uh,
Acherima, remember the last view in the Brisa,
so which
Miuto.
Tana holds which? Is that
No,
clear
so
to
we don't
us?
know which. It's unclear which is Rabbi Tanakama, which is Rabbi Shimon. Like which one of them says if the equinox is on the 16th, so one of them would say um, that's the last day of summer. That's
Right.
bad. The summer Sukkot is in the summer, and the other would say no, that's the first day of fall, and that's good
We
because
just don't
all of
know who's
Sukkot.
who.
Right, right. What the Gemara means by velo masaime. It doesn't. We don't conclude which is which. And the last view in the Brisa, Acherim Amrim, Miuto, if the summer would go into the smaller, the minority part of the month, that's bad, and you have to do a leap year. So in other words, b'chama and what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? The fall, the summer is it's still summer in the minority of the month. It means arba'asar yom, 14 days, right? The 14 versus 16. Um, so, in other words, the Acherim say that it's the number of days that summer goes into Tishrei. Um, so, 14 days. So, in other words, the minority of the month is the first part of the month, and then the equinox comes in on the 15th and takes over, right? So, Micah survey. So, what now? What about that border day, the middle day? Ikasar Yom Tkufa Gomer, if they hold that that the equinox day is the end of summer, v'chule chagbin, and that you have to have the whole of Chol Moed in the fall. Vayika, it works. Like, why would you need if the 14th is the equinox, you have all of Sukkot in the um like the first day of Sukkot would then be the fall, the beginning of fall, and you're good, right? What's the problem? Amar Shmuel Yitzchak, Acherim b'tkufas Nisan kaime. We're talking not about the Sukkot, the fall equinox. We're talking about the spring equinox. Shamaras Chodesh Aviv. So when they say you need a leap year if winter goes 14 days into Nisan, right? That's when you need a leap year. Even what's the source? Shamaras Chodesh Aviv, and this I think is what everyone is familiar with about how the source for the whole leap year um, idea. Shamaras Chodesh Aviv, guard or observe the spring month, right? So what does that mean? Shamar Aviv Shel Tkufa Sheyehei b'Chodesh Nisan. Make sure that the spring equinox occurs in the month of Nisan. Um, now, so the so why the 14th of Nisan?
Well, that's
Um,
Erev Pesach, right?
yeah.
So you want Pesach to be in the spring and not the winter.
Chodesh Nisan. So, but Chodesh Nisan here doesn't mean the month of Nisan. It means the Chidush Nisan, as if it were the renewing of the moon. Which the renewing of the moon happens in what, the first 14 days before it becomes full again, right? So the renewing of the moon should be in the should.
Well, that's you want Pesach itself to fall in the spring and not the winter. So the
Right.
14 days
Yes,
Erev
right.
Pesach.
So it's not the Pesach itself, but it's the renewed moon. It's the full moon has to occur in the. I mean, yes, you're right. It is Pesach, but but it's focusing on the moon. Okay. V'li Abrei Ladar. So the Gemara says,
So they don't
why
even.
not?
So here for them, the issue of Chol Hamoed Sukkot is not even not
Not
even
even the
part of
problem
their
of
conversation.
exactly, or according to Acherim, yes. Now the Gemara has an interesting question. If we're only one day off in Nisan, Liabre Ladar. So instead of having a whole new month added, just add one day to Adar, right? Make Adar a full month, um, and you add one day to the calendar, and then the winter equinox, or the spring equinox gets pushed off to the next to on the calendar to the 15th day instead of the 14th day, right? So why don't you do that? Or Bachabar Yaakov, Tana milamala lamata kachashiv. Um, we're no, you're misunderstanding what he says about the 14 days, about the minority of the month. Hachikamer, this is what it means. Ad miyuta ma'abri. If winter goes into um, the majority of Nissan, in other words, 30 days. Uh, yeah, if winter would be in the how to phrase this. Um, let me use my brain. If winter goes into the larger part of Nisan, in other words, from the 15th to the end of Nisan, then you add a new month. That minority of the month is 14 days. So in other words, if winter goes more than 14 days into Nisan, leap year. If it only goes 14 days, then the equinox would be on the 15th. Spring begins on the 15th. That's okay, or that's not okay, but you can solve it with a single day, a leap day, right? An extra day in the month of Adar, then that's what you do. But if it would be later in the month, one day wouldn't help you, then you do a full leap, a leap year of a full month.
Well, how
Ravina
much
Amar.
later? So wait a second. We're saying if it goes one day into the 15th day, then we add one day. If it goes the 18th, we add a whole month. I mean, what is the nafka
Yeah,
meaning?
yeah, exactly. Because you can solve the problem on the 15th, you can solve the problem by adding one day to the calendar. Then instead of being the 15th, it would be the 16th. Um, or no, no, sorry, take that back. Not, I said that wrong. If you add one day, then what would have been the 15th is now the 14th. And then you're okay. Winter ends on the 14th, then you're okay. But winter was ending on the 15th, that was no good. But you can solve that with one day. But if winter was going to end on the 17th, right, adding one day wouldn't help you. Now it's going to end on the 16th. That's too late. So you have to add the whole month. Your choices are only adding one day or 1 month, then you have to add the 1 month.
Why not? So why not say let's add 3 days or 4 days if they can
Well, how do you do
calculate?
that? There's no mechanism for adding 3 days or 4 days. The only mechanisms we had are adding one day to the month, maximum one day, or adding a whole month. I mean, in a way, these questions are a little odd because, like, if you just add one day now, you're going to have to do it. Next year you're going to have to add a whole month for sure. So, like, what's the problem of adding a month now? If that'll solve your problem, um, you know, it'll solve your problem now and for next year. Like, why do just this kind of minor thing? I guess maybe like making a leap month was a big deal, right? If you could put it off, you would put it off. Maybe it was very disruptive. I don't know.
So there is no mechanism for adding 3 days or 4 days.
Exactly.
It
That's right.
seems, but it isn't one day somewhat arbitrary here? They say let's instead of adding a month, let's add one day. Isn't
Yeah,
that
you can do that by making the month can be 29 days or 30 days, right? So that's one way to manipulate the calendar, right? So the month was going to be 29 days. Okay, this month we'll make it 30 days. That's a minor adjustment. That's how you can add one day to the calendar. But there is no mechanism for having a 3 day Rosh Chodesh. There's no such thing, right? There's no way to make a month a 31-day month. That's not one of the options. It's either 29 days or 30 days.
how do they know in advance? I'm puzzled by this. How do they know in advance? I've been thinking that winter is going to, or winter or summer, whatever it may be, is going to last another day or 2 days or 3 days. How are they going to know that a month in advance or three?
Well, clearly they knew the dates of the equinox and the solstices. That was available knowledge at the time, right? I mean, now we certainly know. I could tell you the equinox. I could ask Google the equinox of every year from now till eternity, and it'll tell me.
So they could look up in the sky and they would know in this by the positions of the
Yeah, well, they
stars.
clearly have very sophisticated calendar calculations because, like, look at the durability of the calendar that was established by who was it? By Hillel.
Okay.
We're still using it 2,000 years later, and it's still pretty accurate. So clearly, they had a very good, well-developed knowledge of these celestial events.
Yeah. They knew astronomy.
Yeah, yes. Um, Ravina has a different way of answering the Acherim problem. The Olam Acherim Tishrei Kaimei. No, they're talking about Tishrei. V'kasav Acherim Kulei Chag Binan V'Yom Tov Rishon what they're arguing about is the Acherim say well, this idea that only the Chol Hamoed part of Sukkot has to be in the fall. Like, where does that come from? They hold that the whole Sukkot has to be in the fall, and that's why they're talking about the 14th day. So if the 14th day is the end of summer, then the 15th, which is the first day of Sukkot, is the beginning of fall, and you're good. But if it's later than that, then the first day of Sukkot would be in the summer, which is no good. So Gemara says Yom Tov Rishon Chag HaSif Ksiv. Wait, but what we said before was Chag HaSif, the gathering holiday, right? But you can't gather things on the first day of uh, of Sukkot because it's Yom Tov. It's an odd question because what you're saying that Chag HaSif is only the name given to the last 6 days of the holiday. That doesn't sound right. So Gemara says Chag Haba Bisman Asifa. It means the holiday that comes during the season of the time of gathering. So it's not a question. Okay.
So
All
what
right,
would you hold
smichas
that?
zekanim. So the
What?
next thing in the Mishnah was smicha has to be done by three judges. According to Rabbi Shimon, and five according to Rabbi Yehuda. Where do we get this from? Tana Rabbana. V'samchu zikne. Um, the elders they lean, right? Leaning is the literal word of meaning of smicha, right? So if it says v'samchu zikne yachol zikne hashuk, it could have been like zucchini, meaning like your local village elders, right? Talmud Lomar Eda. So the Gemara says Samchu Zikne Ha'eda, meaning the Sanhedrin, right? The central authority. That's who gives this smicha. Eda Yachal Ketana Eda. Maybe maybe it means the central court of 23. Talmud Ha'eda, Miyuchadin Shabeda. It's like the Ada, like that. Hey, Hayedida, that definite article means the whole 71 member Sanhedrin. V'chamahen, how many of them have to do this leaning, this smicha? V'samchu shnayim, the word samchu, they do smicha is in plural. That's at least two. Zikne is again plural. That's another two, vein based in shakel, and you can't have an even number. So Masifin add one more. Harikan Chamisha. That's Rabbi Yehuda, Diva Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda's how he gets to five. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Zikne Shnayim. You can't use both plurals. Like it's grammatically, once you're using plural, all the words have to be plural, right? So the fact that it uses plural is what it intends. That means at least two. Vein based in shakel, you can't have an even number, so you add one, that's three. Right? So Rabbi Shimon Haksiv b'samchu. So Gemara says, well, Rabbi Shimon, like, don't you also have the plural word b'samchu? Because, like, what are you going to do? You can't leave out the word because you have to teach the law, and you can't do it in singular because we're dealing with plurals decaying, right? So the fact that there's two plural words doesn't mean that there's four people at the minimum. It still means there's two people minimum, and then you add the one to get an odd number. Rabbi Yehuda sorry. So then what's Rabbi Yehuda's like idea? Like how come he uses both of these plural words to imply more people? Um, if it was the case that the samchu doesn't tell you an extra two people, lichtov zikne ha'eda yedehem al rosh hafar. You don't even need the verb the samchu. Which is a little odd. Like really, like that wouldn't really mean anything. Um, like without the verb, it seems kind of meaningless. So I don't really get what the Gemara is trying to say here. Did Rashi say anything else?
No, there's no Rashi here.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't understand Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda, and I don't see how the Gemara is answering the question.
Rabbi
Mm,
Shimon, right? No, it's what is it?
Rabbi
It's
Yehuda.
who is it?
So, but the Gemara is going to ask, why doesn't Rabbi Shimon accept this? Rabbi Shimon, Iksiv Hache, if it were written without the word V'samchu, Havamina Mai Al, what does it mean? On their head, V'samuch means like, not that they have to lean on the cow, but near it, right? Like above it, right? So the Samchu emphasizes that they actually have to lean on the cow. Rabbi Yehuda. So what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Gama rosh rosh ve'ola. Um, we already have the case of an ola. We are already told that um, we're already told that you have to actually lean on the ola, and it uses the word rosh, and here also it uses the word rosh. So you do xer Shabbat, and you would say just as there you have to lean on it, even without the word v'samchu. Here you would still have to lean on it. And why would not Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon, look at rosh me'ola. He doesn't have that xer Shabbat. Xer Shabbat has to be part of your tradition. You can't just make them up. So he didn't have that in his tradition. So that is the basically at the bottom line, that's the dispute.
Isn't
Tana,
Gezer
we have a
Sheva
question.
Halacha Moshe Misinai?
Yeah, well, I guess is it the same thing? Effectively, it's the same thing. Yeah.
So if it's Halacha Moshe Misinai, why wouldn't everybody have the same Gezer Sheva?
Um, that is the deficiency of the oral tradition of the Torah Shabbal Peh. Different views creep in over time.
I mean, it was passed down from Moshe to this
Why do you
generation.
have any machlokas?
What?
Why do you have any machlokas about anything? Right? If everything is, everything was given at Sinai, shouldn't we know, like, there should be no disputes? And yet we know that there are. Well, the Gemara is one long dispute, really.
Yeah.
So that is the I don't know if you would say deficiency, but that is a key feature of the oral tradition of Torah Shabbal Peh, right? That there are different traditions.
Mm.
Tano, we have a brayso. So smicha zekanim b'shlosha. The smicha of this carbon and also of ordaining zakanim is done by three. My smicha zakanim. What are these two different kinds of smicha being referred to? Amar b'yochanan, mismach save. We're talking about smicha of zakanim. Save is like from the word saba, of the elders. Um, and smichas zekanim, and smichas zekanim means the zekanim leaning on this karba. Amalei Abayim Rabbi Yosef Mismach Save b'Shloshim Minalan. How do you know that ordaining zekanim has to be with three judges? Because Moshe leaned his hands on who's this on
Sure.
Yehoshua, right? So Ihache Tiske Bechad. Moshe was only one person, right? So where do you get the idea of three people? Where's there a source for smicha with three people in the Torah? And maybe you want to say that, well, Moshe is special. Moshe is like the whole 71 Zakanim because he learned everything directly from God. So like, why three? Right? If you want to say Moshe is so great, you would say Moshe is like 71. If you want to have the equivalent of smicha by Moshe, you have to have the whole Sanhedrin doing smicha. Where's his idea of three? Kasha. Where's his good question? Don't have an answer to that one.
But we had in the beginning of the Mishnah, in the beginning of the Masechta, there was a machlokas whether 70 versus 71, right? And whether Moshe was part of the 70 or whether he was in addition to that and he was the
Right.
71. So how can we
Right.
even say here, bring this up to say, well, Moshe is like 71, because there we were saying he's
Yeah, okay. Good question. I mean, we're just testing the waters there, but even if you would say that, it wouldn't answer the question. Like, where do you get three from is a real question here.
yeah, okay. That's
Or you could say the Moshe is like seven. I don't know. Yeah, good question, but it's just this was just kind of a trial balloon that the Gemara shot down, so I wouldn't make too much of it. Okay, let's stop here for today and pick it up tomorrow.
all right.
Have a good day.
Okay, have a good day.